After putting out a video just over a day ago where I said that we've had no information from Blizzard, they've gone and told us a lot of information, and one of them, past me, actually predicted they'd change their mind on anyway. But the main thing I'm focused on here is that race and faction changes are not planned for Wrath of the Lich King Classic. I'd say take this with a pinch of salt because yes, they're not planned, but on the basis that they're seeing that we're actually open to easy monetization for them, could it be implemented? So let's have a quick look at this post. They've said, hey everybody, now that we've announced that Wrath of the Lich King Classic will release on September the 26th, I want to give you an update on some of the items we've been collecting feedback on since our beta began. Good, because we was getting a bit worried hearing absolutely nothing. Raid lockouts. So we've decided that raid lockouts should be shared between heroic and normal versions of the raid, but not between 10 and 25 player versions of the raid. You'll be able to do both 10 and 25 player versions of each raid every lockout, but you will have to choose between normal and heroic for the raids that offer that choice. I'm hoping that during ICC we still get to choose on a boss by boss basis, rather than just you do normal or you do heroic. If you remember back in original Wrath of the Lich King, you'd be able to switch each boss onto heroic that you felt that you was capable of killing, as long as you had someone that had killed Lich King heroic in the group to be able to enable heroic mode. So I'm kind of hoping that that's still the case now. But our original concern was with players feeling required to do the same raid multiple times per week in order to keep up. But that came more from the original experience of Trial of the Crusader than from Naxxramas. Trial of the Crusader's original release allowed you to run 4 different versions of the same content in a single week, all of which provided better loot than anything that had been previously available, which created enormous pressure to run all 4 versions in order to leapfrog over from Ulduar loot. Making the normal and heroic versions of Trial of the Crusader share a lockout does a lot to mitigate that by cutting the number of weekly runs in half. Both an issue and a non-issue. Now, the thing is, it's an entire tier of content which holds much, much better loot than Ulduar, so you're going to be wanting to do it. But the thing is, it don't take that long. So if we're talking a full tier of content that you can clear in about 30 minutes, actually having the extra difficulties that you can do just to have actually more to do during tier 9, I don't think is a bad thing. Outside of Trial of the Crusader, I agree. So for ICC, it's such a big raid, there should only be normal or heroic, but preferably where you can toggle on and off heroic modes for the bosses that you can handle. But for TOC, it's so quick. There's no trash. You just go in, bing, bang, bosh, get through it, and loot, basically. But I did actually say back in this video that if they was to change it to only normal and heroic, they would have to address the loot, and they have actually addressed the loot. But we'll get to that in a minute. Additionally, players have pointed out that in many cases they want to be able to run the 25-player version of the raid with their guild, while pugging the 10-player version. Ultimately, that positive social aspect, seriously, of having raids of various sizes available each week is compelling to us and fits our goal of providing a vibrant social ecosystem for friendships to form and develop in. How lovely. You might, for example, find yourself pugging 10-player raids with a few of the same people from time to time and end up inviting them to fill an empty slot on your main raid roster later on. By contrast, if you could do both normal and heroic in the same week, you'd be incentivized to push your existing group to run them back to back, which isn't the same sort of positive social experience. Although when the raid only takes about 30 minutes, I think doing it back to back isn't really a big deal. So this was recently bugged on the Wrath Classic beta, and both 10, 25-player versions of Nax appeared to share a lockout, but that was unintended and will be fixed before launch. Related to this, we also plan to make any trinkets with both normal and heroic versions, such as Death's Verdict, share a unique equip category. This is so you can't have both versions of the same trinket equipped at the same time. While it was originally possible to do this, it was never intended, and it motivated us to create the unique equipped categories back then. Prior to creating the unique equipped categories, we could only prevent characters from wearing 2 copies of the exact same item. Overall, when it comes to raids, fairly obvious. We sort of knew that. The thing I'd like to know is they said emblems are going to come from raids. I'm pretty sure they said in an earlier update that you'd get emblems of valor from 10 and 25-man raids. Now, being able to clear Nax, for example, on 10 and 25-man, getting those emblems of valor, we could be gearing up very quick. And this is the big one. So race and faction change. While it won't be ready for our launch in September, we have changed our minds on this, and we're working on adding the race and faction change as a paid service in a future patch. Again, surely that was fairly obvious. There were so many people open to giving Blizzard money that they would be idiots not to implement a race and faction change. Originally, we planned not to offer race and faction change at all because it felt like it removed some of that fantasy feeling of having dramatically different physical attributes that affect your gameplay. We were also a little worried about players chasing the flavour of the month in terms of racial abilities, However, we're convinced by the argument that being able to play with your friends is more important, and that you should be able to bring your accomplishments with you when you do. This turns out to be the same trade-off provided by transferring between realms, which is already available as a paid service, so it makes sense to make the same decision with respect to race and faction change. In short, this fits our aim to nurture and protect social experiences, so we'll work on it for an upcoming patch. This is probably where you expect me to go, oh my god, money grabbing Blizzard, like adding faction. No, I think this is a good idea. I'm just going to go out and say I do think it should be there. I think they've done the right thing. Yeah, they're going to make a bit of money from it, but that's what they're here to do. If they don't make money, they won't be able to continue to support the game, and they'll cease to exist. So at least by us, if you do want to chase the flavour of the month, if you're a blood elf and you want to go human, like Paladin, for example, for PvP, then you're going to have that option to do that now without having to worry about leveling another character. The only thing I will say is because they said a while back we won't be doing it, a lot of you rushed off and started leveling new mains. Sorry about that. Character-based mounts and achievements. As before, we plan to have mounts and achievements per character rather than on the account. This originally came up in a response to our plan to not include race and faction change, as a suggested alternative way for players to preserve their accomplishments when re-rolling. Since we've been convinced to allow race and faction change in an upcoming patch, we're going to focus our efforts on that and preserve the original Lich King behaviour of keeping mounts and achievements associated with the character that earned them. Whilst this isn't one I agree with, I'm easy. I don't mind. So the only thing I don't like with it being character bound is if you are quite serious about your mounts and achievements and titles and all of that sort of thing, it really does put you off playing alts. And it does me, as in I'm going to be going hard achievement-wise on one character. So I have a feeling I'm just going to be like, well, I never want to log off of that character. Because you're always going to be wanting to work on the achievements while you're on an alt. That's like time wasted. Or that's how I see it, because I am going for a lot of achievements in Wrath. Whereas if I knew, I could have a hunter for PvP, for example, and then I could get all the PvP achievements on the hunter, all the PvE achievements on the Paladin, all the farming achievements on a Druid. It does mean you can then play alts and it all goes towards the same progress. So I am a bit disappointed, I must admit. LFG tools. We continue to iterate on the bulletin board style looking for group tool, and we do not have plans to add the random dungeon finder. I'm not even reading the rest. This ain't going to turn into a random dungeon finder video. They're not putting it in. But this is an interesting one. So 2v2 arena achievements and titles. We're going to award achievements and titles for the 2v2 arena bracket, just like we did in Burning Crusade Classic. Originally, Wrath of the Lich King dropped achievements and titles from the 2v2 arena bracket, but due to popular demand, we're going to preserve them in Wrath Classic. When we originally stopped awarding titles and achievements for 2v2, it was because 2v2 was difficult to balance. Nowadays, rather than try to make all classes equally capable in all brackets, we want to preserve the existing class balance and celebrate that unique playstyle for the classes that perform well in each bracket. We'll always continue to listen to feedback on these and all topics. I hope this answers many lingering questions about what the state of things will be when we release. Thanks as always for your interest and support. No one's going to be against that, are they? Getting achievements and titles from 2v2. So I think that's a good change. Again, a positive change. I think faction change, positive. Well, faction and race, positive. The fact that they're doing the 2v2 achievements, very positive. The fact that they're not making achievements account-wide, kind of expected, but not positive. And raid lockouts, I'd just say largely unnecessary, if I'm completely honest. I know some of you all see it as a necessary change, but I'd have just left it as it was. It was fine. Unlike normal, because I'm a few hours behind on this post, I've also got some follow-up clarification notes. Name changes have been planned all along and will be available at launch. Fresh servers will launch with pre-patch, and we'll have that date for you in a separate announcement, along with other nearby dates for context. The next couple of months are pretty busy, so we want the schedule to be as clear as possible. So these are in response to people on the forums. So just when I read the first bit, it's somebody asking a question to Blizzard. Well, to the community, and Blizzard have chimed in. So I feel the raid lockouts are being overthought. It was one raid that had 4 lockouts. ICC had dynamic difficulty, and that's fine. The raids before TOGC had only normal and hard modes if you activate them. TOGC should have dynamic difficulty like ICC, as opposed to still having 4 but being locked out of 2 of them. They're clarifying about how Ulduar works. Obviously, we know that's going to work how it already did. We're not actually adding an additional difficulty setting to Ulduar, which we know that's not even part of the question. Only the hard modes that it originally had. Since the hard modes are triggered by mechanics on normal mode bosses, they're already part of the same lockout. As you said, Trial of the Crusader was the only outlier, which is why we're making a change here. That was literally not a response. He said TOGC should have dynamic difficulty, like ICC, and the geezer's then gone on to just start talking about Ulduar. I agree with him though. It should have dynamic difficulty so you can kill the first few bosses on heroic and then switch it over to normal for any bosses you do struggle with, as long as you've got someone in the group that's cleared it on heroic already. Is the LFG tool going to teleport us to the dungeon? I'll answer for Blizzard. No. Can you also increase the bag slots for having SMS Protect and Authenticator? No. It doesn't say no. It says 4 isn't enough. Okay, I have no idea why I'm surprised. Everybody always needs more bag space. But again, there wasn't an answer. ICC was always like this, and Trial of the Crusader is changing. What they're basically asking here is, can you change by boss? Like I've already mentioned numerous times in the video, so this would be interesting to find out. We'd like to let you change between normal, heroic per boss in both TOC and ICC, but we're not ready to commit to that yet. We'll know more as TOC gets closer and we have more time to look at how it's built and how hard it would be to change. All I'm confirming in this post is that you definitely won't be able to do both difficulties in the same week, and that you definitely can do 10 and 25 player versions in the same week, since that was previously something we were considering doing differently. So they're not even confirming that we'll be able to change the difficulty on ICC bosses on the way through. That's going to be a big deal, because it's a big raid. Having to choose between normal or heroic when your guild is starting to progress and you can only physically kill 1, maybe 2 heroic bosses, and then you're losing out on all the other loot if you chose to go heroic, that would be terrible. Trial of the Crusader, not so much of a big deal. There's only 5 bosses. If you kill 3 or 4 and you lose 1, whatever, you're not going to lose any sleep over it. But ICC, only being able to kill Lord Marrowgar and progressing on Lady Death Whisper and then losing the rest of the bosses on normal, that'll be shocking. And that's about it, really. Some good information, some bad information, some information in between. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, click like, subscribe, check out Rested XP so you can level really fast in the pre-patch, and roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.